I don't think there's a video more fitting of being in August for the NBA offseason than this one today. Yeah, we're going to be naming the best NBA player of all time from each state in the United States. So yeah, we're going to be talking about 50 players here today. Maybe they played in the 70s. Heck, maybe they debuted in the 2020s. But yeah, we're going to get a little geographical for you today. If you guys do enjoy these style of videos, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. And yeah, if you were shocked by any of the players that were mentioned here today, or you didn't know that they were born or grew up in this state, let me know in the comments. I learned a lot researching this for this video. And without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to start off in the South with Alabama, and their best player ever was Charles Barkley. This was actually an easy one. He grew up in Leeds, Alabama, just east of Birmingham, and Charles Barkley is one of the best power forwards of all time. He's an 11-time All-Star, an 11-time All-NBA. He was the 1993 MVP. He was named to the NBA's 75th anniversary team, and oh yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Maybe you didn't grow up watching Charles Barkley, but you definitely see him on the TNT show. I mean, he's a dude that averaged 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists throughout his 16-year NBA career. All right, Alaska is a tricky one, don't get me wrong. Now, the only NBA player ever that was born in Alaska was Mario Chalmers, but I'm going to cheat a little bit here and go with Carlos Boozer, who was born on a military base in West Germany, but he was raised in Juneau, the capital of Alaska. Carlos Boozer was a two-time All-Star throughout his NBA career. He was on the 2008 All-NBA third team. He never averaged under 10 points per game throughout his whole career. And his peak from 2005 to 2013, he did average 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. And he played on 4 different teams that included the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he started, Utah, where he played his best games, then Chicago, and finished his career for 1 year in LA in 2015. There's a couple guys that could be listed for Arizona, but I ended up going with Richard Jefferson here. Jefferson went to high school in Phoenix, Arizona, and played 17 years in the NBA. He started out his career in New Jersey with the Nets, and from 2002 to 2008 with the Nets, he did average 17.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Then he spent time in Milwaukee, San Antonio, Golden State, Utah, Dallas. Then in 2016, he signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers and was a vital part of their championship team then. I'm also going to give some love to Sean Elliott and Fat Lever. And Mike Bibby too. Shout out to Mike Bibby. We have Scottie Pippen as the best player from Arkansas. Scottie Pippen made 7 All-NBA teams throughout his NBA career, and he was on All-NBA defensive first team 8 different times. He was a member of the original Dream Team in 1992 and was also part of Team USA's gold medal winning team in 1996. Pippen was also a 7-time All-Star, including the 1994 All-Star MVP. He's won 6 NBA championships and is obviously a Hall of Famer. All right, so there are so many players that grew up in California. I ended up going with Bill Russell, who was technically born in Louisiana but played all of his basketball in California. He went to high school in Oakland. He attended college in San Francisco, and he's one of the best NBA players of all time. He played 13 years in the NBA, all for the Boston Celtics. Also spent a little bit of time coaching as well. He was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 5-time MVP. He was the rebound champ 4 different times. And oh yeah, he won 11 NBA championships. 11, including 8 in a row. And like I said before, he's one of the best players of all time. Shout out to Chauncey Billups being the best player from Colorado. He grew up in Denver, went to high school there, then attended Colorado of Boulder. Then he also played 17 years in the NBA for a plethora of teams that included Boston, Toronto, Denver, Minnesota. Spent his prime years in Detroit, where he won a championship in 2004. And oh yeah, was the 2004 Finals MVP. Then he had some solid years in Denver and finished up his career playing for the Knicks, the Clippers, and then back in Detroit in 2014. He was a 3-time All-NBA member, a 5-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Defensive Team member, and in my opinion, is one of the more underrated players of the 21st century. Calvin Murphy was born in Norwalk, Connecticut, and is going to come as the best player from that state here. Murphy played 13 years in the NBA. His first year with the San Diego Rockets in 1971, and was with the Rockets in their relocation phase to Houston in 72, and then played with them all the way to his final year in 1983. He was a 1-time All-Star and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. He averaged 18 points and 4.5 assists throughout his career. Guess who's the best player in Delaware ever? Yeah, Dante DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo went to high school in Wilmington, Delaware. Then he went on to play college basketball in Philadelphia with Villanova. He actually almost transferred to Temple after his freshman year. Shout out my alma mater. But it was the right move. He won a championship with Villanova, ended up being in the 2018 NBA draft, and has played 5 years in the NBA with Milwaukee, Sacramento, and Golden State, and just got a nice payday from the New York Knicks this past offseason. Alright, so technically we will have 51 different areas here in this video because we got the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. listed here, and one of the better players of all time, Elgin Baylor, is coming in as the best player from the nation's capital. Baylor played 14 years in the NBA, starting off his career with the Minneapolis Lakers. Like Calvin Murphy, he was with the team that relocated to Los Angeles and averaged 27.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists throughout his career. He was the 1959 Rookie of the Year, as well as the All-Star MVP that year. He was an 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. A lot of talent has come out of Florida, but I'm going with Vince Carter as the best player ever, beating out Tracy McGrady. I'm giving it to Carter due to the longevity. He played 22 years in the NBA. He's from Daytona Beach, Florida. Went to college in North Carolina, and from 2000, his sophomore year, to 2009 with the New Jersey Nets, his final year there, he averaged 24 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. He's played for so many different teams in his NBA career. Just mentioned Toronto, New Jersey. Also spent time in Orlando, Phoenix, Dallas, Memphis, Sacramento, and then finishing his career with Atlanta in 2020. Carter was an 8-time All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA. He was the 1999 Rookie of the Year, and when he's Hall of Fame eligible, he'll be a first ballot member. Shout out to Peach State, Georgia, where Dwight Howard is the best player to ever come out of it. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia, played 18 years in the NBA. He was drafted straight out of high school. He averaged 15.5 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks throughout his career. He was an 8-time All-Star, a 2-time block champ, a 5-time rebounding champ, 8-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Defensive Team. He was a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he won a championship with the LA Lakers in 2020. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. There was only one player ever born in Hawaii or raised there to make it to the NBA, and that was Red Roca. He played 9 years in the NBA, averaging 11 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He also shot 37% from the field. Not a lot of talent to come out of the land of the potatoes, Idaho, as Steve Hayes is the best player that ever made it out of Idaho. He only played 5 years in the NBA, averaging 2.5 points and 2.5 rebounds. What's going on with the basketball talent out of Boise? Come on. Isaiah Thomas, the Piston one, is the best player to make it out of Illinois. A lot of talent here with just a great basketball presence in Chicago. Isaiah Thomas averaged 19 points and 9 assists throughout his 13-year NBA career, all with the Pistons. He was a 12-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champion, 5-time All-NBA, 2-time All-Star MVP, also won Finals MVP with the Pistons in 1990, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. Obvious one here for Indiana, and that goes to Larry legend, Larry Bird. He's one of the most important players in NBA history, playing all 13 years of his NBA career with the Boston Celtics, and his resume is just as good as anybody else that's ever played in the NBA. 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, the 1980 Rookie of the Year. He was a 3-time All-Defensive Team, a 3-time MVP, a 3-time NBA champion, and a 2-time Finals MVP. And yeah, he's in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's a top 10 player of all time. Iowa hasn't had a lot of NBA talent, but better than some of these other states, the best player to come out of Iowa has been Harrison Barnes. Also shout out Kirk Heinrich and Kyle Korver. I went with Barnes over those other guys due to his higher level of play coming out of Iowa. He was the #1 high school recruit in 2010, going to UNC, and yes, he hasn't lived up to his fullest potential coming out of North Carolina, but he has played 11 years in the NBA, averaging 15 points, 4.5 rebounds. He won a championship with the Golden State Warriors in 2015, and he just signed a nice contract extension with Sacramento this past offseason. I honestly thought Kansas was going to have a little bit more of talent, but I'm going with big man Antoine Carr here, who grew up in Wichita, Kansas. He went to Wichita State. He played 16 years in the NBA, averaging 9 points and 3.5 rebounds. Also shot 50% from the field throughout his career. He had a really good... There he's that. His best year was in 1991 with the Sacramento Kings, where he averaged 20 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. The best player to ever come out of Kentucky has been Dave Cowens. Cowens played 11 years in the NBA, mainly for the Boston Celtics. Did play the final year of his career in 1983 with the Milwaukee Bucks after retiring for 2 seasons prior. Cowens has a great resume. 8-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, was the 1971 Rookie of the Year, the 1973 MVP, was a 2-time NBA champion, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. Louisiana has had insane NBA talent over the years. Bob Pettit, Joe Dumars, Elvin Hayes, Bob Love, Robert Parrish, Willis Reed, and if we're looking at this objectively, Karl Malone is the best player to come out of Louisiana. He's a 14-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. Maine has not really had an NBA player of its own. Only 2 people who were ever born in Maine have reached the NBA, and that's former Nets and Magic forward Jeff Turner, and the player I'm going with here is Miami Heat wing Duncan Robinson. Robinson actually considers himself from New Hampshire, but by default, I'm going with him here. He's only played 5 years in the NBA, and he's one of the best three-point shooters in today's league. All right, Kevin Durant was born in Washington, D.C., but he was raised in Maryland, and that's why he's coming up here. But if you want to give it to Carmelo Anthony, that's fine with me. But for KD, he's already one of the NBA's 20 best players of all time, in my opinion. He's averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists throughout his 15-year career with the Seattle Supersonics, then the OKC Thunder, the Golden State Warriors, the Brooklyn Nets, and now the Phoenix Suns. He's a 13-time All-Star, a 2-time NBA champion, as well as a 2-time Finals MVP. He's a 10-time All-NBA. He was listed on the NBA 75th anniversary team, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he retires, and he may be a consensus top 10 player ever when he retires. Shout out Knicks legend Patrick Ewing as being the best player to come out of Massachusetts. He went to high school in Cambridge and played 17 years in the NBA, 15 of them being with the Knicks, and then the last 2 with the Supersonics and Magic. Ewing was an 11-time All-Star, a 3-time All-Defensive member, a 7-time All-NBA member. He's in the Hall of Fame and averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists throughout his 17-year career. A no-brainer here for Michigan, and that is Magic Johnson. Magic averaged 19.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists throughout his 13-year career. He was a 12-time All-Star, a 10-time All-NBA member, a 5-time NBA champion, 3-time Finals MVP. He's in the Hall of Fame. He won the MVP 3 different times, and he did play every single season with the LA Lakers. Unfortunately, his career was cut short due to him getting HIV in 1991. One of the more underrated players in NBA history, Kevin McHale, is the best player to come out of Minnesota, where he went to high school and college. McHale played all 13 years of his NBA career with the Boston Celtics from 1981 to 1993. He averaged 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists throughout those 13 years, in which he was a 7-time All-Star, 1987 All-NBA team member, 6-time All-Defensive team member, 2-time Sixth Man of the Year, and a 3-time NBA champion, as well as being in the NBA Hall of Fame. We're going back to the 1970s for the best player to make it out of Mississippi, and that's Spencer Haywood. Haywood played 13 years in his NBA career, and his first year, his rookie season in 1970 for the Denver Rockets at the time, he averaged 30 points and 20 rebounds. He was obviously the Rookie of the Year that season. Throughout his 13-year career, he played for the Rockets, the Supersonics, the Knicks, the Jazz, the Lakers, and the Bullets. He averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists throughout those 13 years. He was a 5-time All-Star. He won MVP in his rookie season, won an NBA championship 10 years later in 1980, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. I know he doesn't have the resume as some of the other players coming out of Missouri, but when it's all said and done, Jason Tatum will be the best player out of the state. He's only played 6 years in the NBA so far, but he's already one of the league's best players at 25 years old. Over the last 3 years for the Celtics, Tatum has averaged 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. He's already a 4-time All-Star, a 3-time All-NBA member. He was the 2023 All-Star MVP. He was the 2022 Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And I think when it's all said and done, Tatum will definitely be in the Hall of Fame. Not a lot of talent to make it out of the state of Montana, but I'm going with Larry Krystkowiak here. Krystkowiak played 10 years in the NBA from 1987 to 1997, averaging 8 points and 5 rebounds. He played for the San Antonio Spurs, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Utah Jazz, the Orlando Magic, the Chicago Bulls, and finished his career with the LA Lakers. His best season was in 1989 with the Bucks, where he averaged 12 points and 7.5 boards. We got another Boozer making this list. Bob Boozer, the best player to make it out of Nebraska. He was the first overall pick in the 1959 NBA draft. He played 11 years in the league with a plethora of teams. The only 2 years he didn't average above 10 points per game were his rookie year and his final year. But over those 11 years, he averaged 15 points, 8 rebounds, and assists and a half a night. He also won a championship with the Cincinnati Royals in 1971. I was kind of shocked by the lack of talent to come out of Nevada, but I'm going with Lionel Hollins here, who played from 1976 to 1985. He had a very good career, though, with the Portland Trailblazers, the Philadelphia 76ers, the San Diego Clippers, the Detroit Pistons, and the Houston Rockets. He averaged 11.5 points and 4.5 assists throughout his career. He was a 1-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defensive member, and won the championship in 1977 with the Trailblazers. I was not expecting to be talking about the Red Rocket today, but Matt Bonner, the best player ever out of New Hampshire. Bonner was the 45th pick in the second round in the 2003 NBA draft, and he went on to play 12 years in the NBA with the Toronto Raptors and the San Antonio Spurs. He averaged 5.8 points throughout his career and 3 rebounds, but he shot 41% from 3 and won 2 championships with the Spurs throughout his career, one in 2007, then again in 2014. Easy one here for the state of New Jersey. It is going to be Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq played 19 years in the NBA, most notably with the LA Lakers, which he was part of those three-peat teams in the early 2000s, but then won another championship with the Miami Heat a few years later. Shaq has an elite all-time resume. He's a 15-time NBA All-Star, a 4-time NBA champion, a 2-time scoring champion, 14-time All-NBA, the 1993 Rookie of the Year, a 3-time All-Star MVP, won the MVP in 2000, 3-time Finals MVP, and you could say he was the most dominant player of all time at his peak. Shout out New Mexico, where Bill Bridges was the best player to come out of it. He was a 3rd-round pick in the 1961 NBA draft. He did play 13 years in his NBA career, where he averaged 12 points and 12 rebounds. He was a 3-time All-Star and won a championship in 1975 with the Golden State Warriors. One of the greatest players ever came out of New York, where there's obviously a ton of talent, and that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem started his career in Milwaukee and then played majority of it in LA with the Lakers. He averaged 24.5 points, 11 rebounds, and 3.5 assists throughout his 20-year career. He had the all-time scoring title for a while until LeBron broke it this year. He was a 19-time All-Star, a 6-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, a 6-time MVP, and is obviously in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's looked at to be a top 5 player of all time on mainly everyone's list. We got back-to-back GOATs here. Michael Jordan, the best player ever out of North Carolina, where he played high school in Wilmington and then college in Chapel Hill with the UNC Tar Heels. I mean, yeah, it's Michael Jordan. You guys already know. 15 years in the NBA, 13 of them with the Chicago Bulls, was part of 2 teams that three-peated in the 1990s, 6-time Finals MVP. From 1987 to 1998, he won every single scoring title besides 1995, where he came out of retirement to only playing 17 games that year. In your opinion, he might be the greatest player of all time, if not number 2. Yeah, the GOAT's resume speaks for itself. Shout out Phil Jackson from North Dakota, who's like the most North Dakota guy ever. Jackson played 12 years in the NBA for the New York Knicks and the New Jersey Nets. He was a 2-time NBA champion, and then he won plenty of championships as a head coach, and he's looked at as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Maybe not one of the best GMs ever, though, for his tenure with the Knicks. If North Dakota wasn't a state and Ohio was next, we were going to have 3 GOATs in a row. But yeah, Ohio, LeBron James. I mean, just like Jordan, LeBron's resume speaks for itself. He's played 20 years in the NBA. He's still going, averaging 27.5 points and 7.5 rebounds throughout those 20 years with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Miami Heat, and the Lakers. He's a 4-time NBA champion. He won Finals MVP in those 4 years as well. He's a 19-time NBA All-Star. In your opinion, he may be the greatest player of all time. Blake Griffin is the best player to come out of the state of Oklahoma, where he played high school in Edmond and went to the University of Oklahoma with the Sooners. He was the number 1 overall pick in the 2009 NBA draft. He's still kicking around today, where he's played 13 seasons in the NBA, mainly with the LA Clippers and the Detroit Pistons, and has spent the last 3 seasons with the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics. Griffin has averaged 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists throughout his NBA career. He's made the All-Star game 6 times. He was a 2011 Rookie of the Year, beating out John Wall, 5-time All-NBA, and he may be a Hall of Famer when he retires. We have another great power forward of the 21st century here coming out of Oregon, and that is Kevin Love. Love has played 15 years in the NBA and is still going. He just re-signed with the Miami Heat. He spent the best of his years in Minnesota and in Cleveland. Love is a 5-time NBA All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA member. He won the 2011 Most Improved Player Award and won the championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016. Love also may be a Hall of Famer when he retires. One of the best players ever came out of Pennsylvania, and that was Wilt Chamberlain, who was born in Philadelphia. Chamberlain played 14 years in the NBA and has video game-like numbers from 1960 to 1966, where he averaged 40 points per game and 24.5 rebounds. He's a 13-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champion, and is looked at as being a top 7 player of all time. We have Ernie DiGregorio here coming in as the best player ever from Rhode Island. Ernie played 5 years in the NBA from 1974 to 1978 with the Buffalo Braves, the LA Lakers, and the Boston Celtics. He was actually the 1974 assist champion, averaging 8.2 a night with 15 points in his rookie year, in which he won Rookie of the Year that season. One of the best defensive players ever came out of the state of South Carolina, and that was is Kevin Garnett. Garnett played 21 years in the NBA with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, and then finished his career back in Minnesota in 2016. Garnett averaged 18 points and 10 rebounds throughout his career, as well as 1.3 steals and 1.4 blocks. Like I said, one of the greatest defensive players ever. 15-time All-Star, won a championship with the Celtics in 2008, 12-time All-Defensive Team member. He won the MVP in 2004 and won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2008. One of the more underrated shooters of the 21st century, Mike Miller, is the best player to come out of the state of South Dakota. Miller played 17 years in the NBA with a bunch of teams. His best years, though, came from 2002 to 2008 with the Orlando Magic and Memphis Grizzlies, where he averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, and shot 40% from 3. He won the Sixth Man of the Year award in 2006 and won the NBA title with the Miami Heat in 2012 and 2013. Going down to the state of Tennessee, and Penny Hardaway is the best player to come out of it. Penny played 14 years in the NBA with the Orlando Magic, the Phoenix Suns, the New York Knicks, and the Miami Heat. He averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He was a 4-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA member, and was the 3rd overall pick in the 1993 NBA draft. One of the more underrated players of all time, in my opinion, is the best player to come out of Texas, and that is Clyde Drexler. Obviously, a ton of talent has come out of the state, but I think it's a no-brainer that Clyde Drexler is the best. He played 15 years in the NBA with the Trailblazers and the Houston Rockets, averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. And there was a point from 1988 to 1992 where Drexler was a top 3 player in the sport. He's a 10-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA member, won a championship in 1995 with the Houston Rockets, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. Now going out west here to the Mormon State, Utah, Tom Chambers, the best player to come out of it. Chambers played 16 years in the NBA and had an incredible peak from 1985 to 1990, where over those seasons he averaged 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. He was a 4-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA member, and was the All-Star MVP in 1987. Nobody born in Vermont has ever made it to the NBA, but Bruce Brown, who went to high school in Vermont, even though he was born in Boston, is making the list here. Bruce Brown is one of the best role players in the NBA. He played such an important part of the most recent NBA champion team with the Denver Nuggets. Brown has played 5 years in the NBA, averaging 8.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, and he just signed a nice contract with the Indiana Pacers few months ago. No brainer here is one of the best players of all time to come out of Virginia, and that is Moses Malone. Malone played 21 years in the NBA with a plethora of teams. He was a 13-time All-Star, 8-time All-NBA member, 2-time All-Defensive Team member. He won the MVP award 3 different times and won Finals MVP with the Philadelphia 76ers in 1983. Another NBA legend here coming out of Washington, and that is John Stockton, one of the best point guards of all time. Stockton played 19 years in the NBA, all with the Utah Jazz. He's one of the best passers of all time, winning the Assist Season Award 9 different times. He was a 10-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA member, and is in the NBA Hall of Fame. I was kind of shocked to learn Jerry West came out of West Virginia. West is the NBA logo, spent 14 years in the NBA, all with the LA Lakers, and made it to the All-Star game in every single year of his career. He was the 1969 Finals MVP with the Lakers and is a legend on the floor as a player and in the front office as an executive. I was also kind of shocked to learn Latrell Sprewell is from Wisconsin. Sprewell is an underrated scorer throughout his career. Only 13 seasons though. He never averaged below 20 points per game and did average 24 points with the Golden State Warriors in 1997. He was a 4-time All-Star and made it to the 1984 All-NBA First Team. And finally, for Wisconsin, it is James Johnson. Yeah, did not know that either. James Johnson has played 14 years in the NBA and was on the Indiana Pacers last season. He's the definition of an NBA journeyman. And yeah, that is the video. That is the best player from every state plus Washington, D.C. So 51 different players are mentioned today. A lot of time went into this video, so if you guys did enjoy, I would appreciate you leaving a thumbs up and a comment below. Subscribe if you are not already. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.